I know. I like broccoli on my pizza, guys. I'm crazy, but it's so good. It's so good on pizza, though. I mean, I've also have corn on pizza, and I don't dislike corn on pizza, but tuna on pizza sounds wrong. We're gonna be watching a video about 500-year-old pizza versus the way pizza is today. I'm really curious. I actually don't know much about the history of pizza at all. Pizza without onion is sacrilegious. That's what we should call it now. Whenever food is sacrilegious, we should call it sacrilegious. But let's start watching our video, guys. We can talk more about pizza while we're watching the pizza video.
Shot. What's the Pope's favorite pizza topping? I actually don't know. But in 1570, it might have been rose water and sugar. And
wait, pizza used to have sugar on it? And what does rose water taste like?
That's what we're making today. A 16th century Italian pizza served in the papal court, which calls for exactly those ingredients. So thank you to Bright Cellars for sponsoring this video as we slice into the history of pizza, this time on Tasting History.
Basically, it looks like old school pizzas used to be calzones.
So this recipe comes from the Opera di Bartolomeo Scapi, which I did an entire episode on, and I'll put a link up here in the corner so you can watch it, or I'll put one in the description as well. The entire book is filled with recipes that are quintessentially Italian Renaissance, that kind of mixture of sweet and spice that our palate might just be like, what? And this one is no different. Per fare pizza sfogliata ad un altro modo. Another way to prepare flaky pizza. Bring together 3 pounds of fine flour and 2 ounces of yeast starter, 4 ounces of breadcrumb that is soaked in warm water, and enough salt. When the dough—
Wait. Bring together 3 pounds of fine flour, 2 ounces of yeast starter. Makes sense. 4 ounces of breadcrumb. Why you put breadcrumb in your pizza dough? I guess recycling bread, and then it's soaked in warm water, so soggy bread. And enough salt. When the dough is made, let it rest. At least he's making this. I'm excited to see what it turns out to taste like.
Dough is made, let it rest, covered in a warm place to rise, as is done with bread. Then—
because it's flaky pizza, so you need the breadcrumbs? I don't know about that. Why would the breadcrumbs make the pizza flaky?
And knead it again on the table for a half hour, adding in, little by little, 2 pounds of fresh butter.
Fresh butter?
Knead until all of the butter has been worked into the dough and it has become soft. Split the dough up into 2 or 3 pieces, and with each piece, make the pizza in a torte pan, which has fresh butter in it. Bake it in an oven.
This is a fatty pizza.
With melted butter on top. Make several holes on top with the tip of a knife so it will not puff up too much. When it is nearly done, sprinkle with sugar and rose water. This pastry—
What? This sounds like a pie!
Should be baked slowly and serve it hot. So does that sound at all like a pizza to you? No, not really. But frankly, the definition of pizza is kind of weird. I mean, look at Chicago-style pizza. It's basically soup. Anyway, for this recipe, what you'll need is 4...
I still haven't had Chicago pizza. I do one day want to. And then you go to Chicago. Pizza used to be a pastry, apparently, like a pie. Hence why it's called pizza pie.
4 cups or 480 grams of bread flour. A 1/4 cup or 60 grams of high yeast biga. This will need to have a much higher yeast and flour content than your typical sourdough starter, so it might take you a little while to make that, or just add in more yeast. If you just want to use dried yeast, I'd use about a teaspoon. 6 tablespoons or 60 grams of breadcrumbs soaked in 1 cup or 120 milliliters of warm water. An additional 1/2 cup of water. 2 teaspoons of salt. 1 pound or 400 grams of unsalted butter.
Look at how much butter, guys!
Butter cut into pieces. So usually during Scapi's time, butter would have a lot of salt in it, more than we'd be used to. But he specifically in this recipe calls for fresh butter. So my thought is that he's not adding the salt because the salt was added as a preservative. I don't know that, but he also calls out salt individually in the recipe, so we're doing unsalted butter and just adding salt where we need.
Apparently butter used to be really salted back in the day. I didn't know that, but it makes sense to help preserve the butter. You coat things in salt and it preserves things.
2 tablespoons of melted butter.
More
1
butter.
tablespoon of sugar. And 1 teaspoon of rose water.
What is
Now, you'll
rose
notice
water?
that these are not the exact quantities that Scapi called for because he must be making a pizza to feed, well, the entire papal court, which he probably was. I cut everything in half, and it's still a lot of dough. So first, whisk the salt into the flour, then add your yeast and soaked breadcrumbs, and then mix everything together. Then add in the additional half cup of water, but only as much as you need to make it form a dough. This dough ends up being super, super sticky once you add in all of the butter, so don't add any more water than you need to get it to come together. If you need to add more later on, you can, but it's gonna be real sticky. Then knead the dough for about 10 minutes until the dough starts to smooth.
My question now is, how is rose water made? Like, does the rose water, like, do you take roses and you soak it in water? Like, do you take roses and you soak it in water and then mush it, or like blend it and then strain it?
Smooth out. Then put it in a lightly greased bowl and cover, allowing it to double in size. Now, depending on the yeast, it could take 2 to 4 hours to rise. Mine took about 4, but it was so worth the wait. Plus, it gave me time to pour myself a glass of wine, courtesy of today's sponsor, Bright Cellars. Now, if you've ever watched this show before, you will know that occasionally I do enjoy a glass of wine. And one of my favorite things about wine is trying new wines. But
I don't
whenever
like
I go to the
wines.
store, I always end up getting the same wines that I know because I already know that I'm going to like
ad,
them.
I know.
So, the cure to my
Would it be
wine
bad if
monotony
I
I found
just
is
skipped
Bright
through the
Cellars.
ad for
you
a
take
second?
a 7-question quiz on what you enjoy, and then they send you a box of wine. And take your quiz to
There
get
you go.
started. Now, back to your regularly scheduled pizza.
I don't like wine. I'm not a wine girly. I think red wine tastes like blood, and white wine, I haven't had a lot of white wine. I don't hate white wine, but red wine tastes like blood.
Once the dough is risen, punch it down
To me, it does. It tastes like irony, disgusting blood, like a sweeter blood. It does not taste good.
and turn it out onto a lightly floured surface. Stretch it into a square or rectangle and
Of course I've tasted blood. Of course I've tasted blood. I've had tooth bleeding, or like a lip bleed, or like you know when you cut your finger and you suck on your finger. But red wine tastes like blood. To me, that's what it's giving me. It's like giving me blood vibes. I don't like beer either. I've had enemies. I've bitten people.
and scatter a few pieces of butter on top.
More butter?
Then fold it over to cover the butter. Then knead it until the butter is fully incorporated. Then do this again, and again, and again.
This is how you laminate, guys. We did this before. We talked about this. Lamination.
Again until all of the butter is incorporated.
So much butter!
Pro tip, use a stand mixer if you got it. Also, as you add butter into this dough, it is going to get super, super sticky. And if it becomes too sticky to work with, which it probably will at some point, just add some more flour. 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time, just to keep it, you know, in dough form rather than like liquid butter form.
With so much butter, you might cement mixer. See, at this point, I want to put like jam onto this thing. This is a scone recipe, guys. This is a full-on British scone recipe. At some point, somebody took a scone recipe and was just like, okay, let's make it savory, because that's what it sounds like. Also, savory scones are so good.
Fattening.
Once all the butter is incorporated and the dough is silky smooth, divide it into 3 pieces, then let it rest, preferably in the refrigerator, for about a half an hour. And while you wait, preheat your oven to 50 Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius. Then butter the bottom and the sides of a large pie or cake pan. It's going to work best if you have one of those false bottom cake pans. It's just easier to get out, but you don't need it. What you do want to use is the biggest frickin' pan that you can find, because even halved, which is what I'm doing, this recipe calls for a lot of dough. You can also half what I'm doing, which is a quarter of what Scapi's doing, because, I mean, if you don't have a 10-inch cake pan, which is what I used, half it. Once the dough is rested, roll it into discs the diameter of the pan and form the pizza by layering the dough pieces in the pan on top of each other.
Layering?
Then top it all off by brushing on a layer of melted butter.
Layering? They're layering. What is this thing? What is this thing, guys? What is this pizza?
Then, using a knife, poke some holes all over the top to keep it from puffing up too much. Then set the pizza on a lined baking sheet and bake for 1 hour and 15 minutes.
An hour?
Now that is a long bake time, but it's because it's a lot of frickin' dough. But that gives me time to top off my glass of wine and tell you how we got from this pizza to this pizza.
Tell us! Tell us! History time! This is what I'm excited for.
So when tracking the history of pizza, we really have to figure out where to start, because if your idea of pizza is just some flatbread with stuff on it, then the ancient Greeks, Egyptians, and Indians had pizza. But I don't consider naan with some oil on it pizza. In the 6th century BC, Persian soldiers under Darius the Great baked flatbread on their shields and put cheese and dates on top.
Oh!
Closer, but pizza? I mean, they didn't call it pizza, and frankly, if you're going to call that pizza, then you have to call pancakes that have syrup and berries on it pizza.
That's true.
Then where do you draw the line? Is tostada a pizza?
Yes!
No, I don't think so.
Well, then when does pizza become a thing? Well, the very first mention of pizza using the word pizza comes from 997 in Gaeta, Italy. It was found in a contract between Bernardo, the son of Duke Marino II, and the Bishop of Gaeta. And basically, if Bernardo wanted to use the bishop's mill, then every year on Christmas Day, you and your heirs must pay us 12 pizze. 12 pizza.
Wait, guys! Pizza's a Christmas food! Wait, pizza's a Christmas food! This needs to be a new Christmas tradition! Just 12 pizzas! Pizza's a Christmas food now, officially, guys.
Pizzas. And
then we just need to update it. 'Tis the season for the pizza. Fa la 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 la. Let's enjoy our 12 pizzas. Da 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 da. Well, you share it with your family, guys. The 12 pizzas for everyone, not just you. On the first day of pizza, Camila gave the chat pepperoni and Swiss cheese. On the second day of pizza, Cami gave to chat mushrooms and bell peppers, pepperoni and Swiss cheese.
Similarly, 12 pizzas and a couple of chickens. On the day of Holy Easter of Resurrection.
Wait, guys. Pizza's also an Easter food. The bunny rabbit brings you chocolate and pizza.
So even before our papal pizza today, bishops were eating it. Very popular dish amongst the clergy. Now the first recipe for something called pizza comes from 1524 in the Manoscritto Lucano. And then, some years later, in 1570, we have 5 pizza recipes in Bartolomeo Scapi's opera, which we are making one of today. Scapi is also the first mention of that link between Naples and pizza. To prepare a torte with various ingredients called pizza by Neapolitans. Though some of the ingredients include pine nuts, dates, figs, raisins, and cinnamon. None of which are available at Domino's. Maybe at Papa.
Interesting. Pine nuts are really good on pizza, but like dates, raisins, and cinnamon, it sounds like more like a spiced bread.
Papa John's, though. Now that connection between Naples and pizza is very important because Naples is often credited with being the birthplace of what we know as pizza today. But it was not papal pizza like we are making today. It is poor people pizza. It was a food for the poor, or the lazzarone, as Alexandre Dumas said. And he didn't seem to hold them in high regard. But the pizza that they were eating sounds a lot more like what we would know as pizza today. The lazzarone usually eats two things, pizza and watermelon.
What?
Pizza is round in shape and is kneaded from the same dough as bread. It comes in different widths depending on the price. A 2-farthing pizza is enough for a man, a 2-penny should fill a whole family. The pizza is with oil, the pizza is with cheese, the pizza is with tomatoes.
Wait, oil, bacon, lard, cheese, but lard and oil is like basically the same. And tomatoes!
The pizza is with small fish. The word pizza has lost all meaning at this point in the video. Now he mentions cheese and tomatoes, and those, I would think, are pretty important to pizza today. And for more on the amazing history of tomatoes specifically, you should watch this video up here, I'll put it in the description, on the history of tomatoes.
Yes, the history of tomatoes is really fascinating, guys, because apparently people used to think tomatoes were poisonous. They used to think tomatoes were poisonous. We'll have to watch the tomato video another time.
AKA the badass name Wolf Peach. It's a really good video. Now the Lazzarone mostly ate these pizzas on weekdays as they saved up their money so they could buy macaroni on Sundays, though macaroni did not necessarily look like macaroni as we think of it. And if you still had trouble saving up enough, then you could get a discount pizza if you were fine with day-old pizza, which I usually am. Dumas even says, there are week-old pizzas for those with small purses. These can, if not pleasantly, at least advantageously replace seafood biscuits.
Week-old pizzas! Oh no, week-old pizza. I mean, 2-day-old pizza's fine, but back then they didn't have fridges.
Week-old pizza? Before refrigerators?
The cheese is old and moldy.
I'm guessing it was one of these pizzas that prompted Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph, to describe pizza as a species of most nauseating cake covered over with slices of pomodoro or tomatoes and sprinkled with little fish and black pepper and I know not what other ingredients. It all together looks like a piece of bread that had been taken reeking out of the sewer.
Oh,
that was probably just a piece of
that was probably a really old pizza.
Chicago-style deep dish. Ooh, fighting words. Now, in general, the pizza was not looked on with high regard, and Dumas even says, you can't eat a pizza without risking suffocation. Was Dumas a drama queen or severely gluten intolerant? You decide. Though I do wonder if Dumas actually mixed up this week-old pizza with pizza a otto, which was basically you got fresh pizza today, but you had to pay for it 8 days later, like layaway or the payday lenders of 19th century Naples. Now these—
Wait, you bought pizza and then you paid later? That doesn't seem smart. Like, what?
pizzas tended to be small, kind of personal-sized pizzas that were sold on the streets by street vendors, though there were some more reputable locations where you could eat pizza, including a tavern that was founded in the 18th century called Pizzeria di Pietro e Basta Così, which translates roughly to the most stereotypically Italian-sounding name ever. Peter's Pizza Place, and that's enough. How great is that? And it is in this shop, later renamed Pizzeria Brandi, where we get pizza's most famous origin story. It's probably, well, it's definitely not completely true. It's probably somewhat true, but here it is. In 1889, Umberto I,
See, I don't know anything about pizza's origin, so this is like apparently the most commonly known origin of pizza.
king of a recently unified Italy, and his wife, Queen Margherita, decided to branch out from the French cuisine of the palace and headed to Naples, where they commissioned Raffaele Esposito, the then owner of Pizzeria Brandi, to make 3 pizzas. One with lard, one with fish, and one with basil, tomato, and fresh mozzarella. Queen Margherita tried the first pizza and said, "This pizza is too fatty." She tried the second pizza and said,
this is fucking Goldilocks and the 3 pizzas. This pizza is too fatty. This pizza is too salty. This pizza is just right. And then she took it home and she made the pizza and the rest is history. Freaking Goldilocks.
"This pizza is too fishy." Finally, she tried the third pizza, the one with mozzarella, tomato, and basil, and she said, "This pizza is just right." And thus was born the Pizza Margherita. It even had the 3 colori, or colors, of the Italian flag: green basil, white mozzarella, and red tomatoes. Again, probably not entirely true. Well, it's definitely not entirely true, but there might be some truth to it. But Naples says that this is how it happened, and the story is just too good not to accept without question. But even with the Queen on board, pizza still stayed a food of the poor, and thank God it did, because those were the people who brought it to America. In the late 19th and early 20th century, poor Italian immigrants—
It's so funny because a lot of the food that was considered like rich people food, nobody likes nowadays. Rich people food is like, nobody wants to eat rich people food. By today's standard, rich people food is different, but back then, rich people food was gross. And now, like, everybody's like, the poor people food is like the normal people food because it's the good food. Exactly. Even lobster was considered poor people food, and now it's considered rich people food. Make it make sense. They're just stealing it from us.
Immigrants brought pizza to the streets of New York City.
New York!
Now, pizza was being sold all over the streets of New York, especially in Little Italy, but the first place that is credited with the first pizza, because they went and got a license, that's why, is called Lombardi's on Spring and Mott Street in Little Italy, and that is just 1 block from my first New York apartment. It was so small, great area, but it was so small that my bedroom door could not open all the way because I had a twin bed in there, and that got in the way. So could you really call it a bedroom if it can't fit a bed? But pizza still really hadn't taken off outside of the Italian-American community. For that,
it is true. It is true. Lobster was considered a poor food. It's 100% true. They were seen as bottom feeders, and so none of the rich people wanted to eat them.
we would have to go to war. When our brave boys returned home from fighting in Italy in WW2, they brought back a love of Italian food. And one of those Italian foods was pizza. It was the perfect food for the new suburban lifestyle. It could be made at home, or it could be made for delivery. And pizza places started popping up in cities all over the country. In 1958, Pizza Hut opened.
Pizza the Hut!
And in 1960, Tom and
What was that?
James Monahan bought the Michigan pizzeria Dominic's and changed the name to Domino's. This is also when frozen pizza was becoming popular. And I do love a frozen pizza. To this day, I cannot do Halloween. Halloween has to start with a Red Baron pizza. I do not know why, but every Halloween I eat myself an entire Red Baron pizza all by myself, just as I did when I was a little kid. I was a chubby kid. I was a big kid. I wore husky pants, but man, I do love a Red Baron pizza. I only do it once a year now, though. What's interesting is that back in Old Italy, pizza still hadn't really gotten out of Naples and a few other places like Sicily.
That's interesting.
But when American tourists started showing up in Italy and they wanted pizza and Pisa, the other parts of Italy had to step up and start making their.
That's so fascinating, actually, that Americans made pizza the famous Italian food because it was very limited in it, because they loved it from the Pavos bringing it over there.
Their own kinds of pizza, and it didn't go great at first. Some of the country was so bad at mimicking Neapolitan pizza that the city of Naples founded AVPN, or the Associazione Verace Pizza Napoletana, which laid the groundwork for what makes pizza pizza. But I think that it was a little too late. The cat was already out of the bag, because here in America we were making sushi pizza and pizza bagels, and we had really done whatever we want with pizza. Heck, you could even come over to my house later tonight and have yourself a pizza with rose water and sugar.
Yep, literally the pizza police!
Because I'm pretty sure my pizza's about done. So at 1 hour and 15 minutes,
Oh my
open up the
God.
oven and quickly brush on the rose water and sprinkle with sugar.
Sugar!
Then let it bake for another 15 minutes or until it's baked all the way through. And then your papal pizza is ready to eat. And here we are,
500-year-old
Scappi's
pizza.
from the Italian Renaissance.
It's just
Now
dough.
this is a real pizza work. So,
That's just pizza cake. That is just bread cake.
it smells amazing. I mean, it smells
I
like
bet
fresh,
it would.
It kind of smells like croissants.
Yeah.
I let it cool. You need to let it cool before you cut into it, because the butter needs so much butter.
So much butter.
Here we go. Let's give this a.
This is basically a croissant pizza.
Maybe it overrose, or I'm not sure. It's gonna be fine.
You think it's good? I think it's fatty.
That's delicious. It's not pizza.
It's not pizza!
I mean, that's fantastic. The rose is so subtle. I didn't just taste some of the top. The rose is so subtle. It's there on the top. That's wonderful. Wow.
It's just butter.
I would make it thinner next time. I'd do like a half of my recipe. I really think that that's probably the way to go. This is nice, but oh my God, it's so much bread. You know, we're not gonna eat this.
No, we're not.
Is it pizza? I mean, it's called pizza, but I think it would be like if somebody said, hey, are you a doctor? And I said, yes, I'm a doctor. And then they found out I'm a doctor of, you know, like the oboe performance or something like that. I mean, yeah, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a doctor. By the way, I'm not a doctor of anything, so that's just a story. But this is some really good pizza. Just, you know, don't tell your friends that it's pizza. They'll think you're crazy. Instead, tell them this is pizza, which is also delicious, and this is what I'm going to have for dinner tonight.
It's
I'll
pizza!
see you next time on Tasting History.
Oh my God. I burped, guys. I'm sorry.
That's pizza. That's pizza.
That was a fun video.